This is Need to Know. News, context, and analysis about anomalous phenomena. Here's some real talk from two authors who literally wrote the book on disclosure. From New York, Richard Dolan. From Los Angeles, Bryce Zabel. Let's get started.
Wow, I love that new intro. That really works for me. You know, we have a great, interesting take on an early show for us today. So let's get started. And let me get the team on the field, which would involve bringing in my co-host, Richard Dolan. Richard, how are you doing?
Hey, Bryce, glad to be here. I'm happy to do show number 2 with you. I'm looking forward to doing these. And I think for me, it comes down to the quality of our conversation. I like, and I hope that people enjoy the fact that you and I can go back and forth in kind of an easy, respectful way with each other to discuss all of the amazing things that have to do with the UFO, UAP subject.
I sure agree with that. I also think that even if you do the hits, runs, and airs, one of the things that they need is context. So, for example, we're talking about whistleblowers testifying before Congress. That's in the news of what's about to happen in this month. Yet at the same time, it's not the first time it's happened. It's the first time it's happened this way. A little context is good to know what has worked before and maybe what we should expect, and also to look at what's new about what we're doing right now. So I look forward to all of it. But you know what? We got a jam-packed show. So let's talk about it. The concept of this show is, it's in the title, What You Need to Know Now.
Right.
And what we've decided to do is each pick 3 things that we think would be a good baseline for what makes as a basis to appreciate and enjoy the shows that will come after. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are your take? I mean, so I'm curious. What was your process to pick your 3?
That was really interesting. I literally sat down on my computer with a blank sheet. So all I did, and I wanted to ask myself, what are actually 3 really super important things? Like whether you're talking to someone who knows the subject extremely well or someone who doesn't necessarily know it extremely well, what do I think are actually super important? And I keep coming back to the fact that, I picked 3 things. That's what we each did. So one is simply that I think there's a very excellent indication that some of these UFOs or UAP are not ours. They're not from our civilization or our current civilization. And I have a couple of others. I have one. I think it's a global presence in many thousands every year. And the last one I just think is that science, as much as we speculate, I don't really think that we understand the science of how they do what they do. So those are my 3 things.
Well, I'm going to keep mine. I'm going to keep the audience in suspense by not telling them what my 3 are right now. But you know what I thought was interesting? It was a process, because the truth is there are a lot of things that you could say we need to know now. And this is a starter set. It's a group of things that I look at this as portals into future shows and to other things that we might bring up. But they illustrate one thing that I think both of us kind of appreciate about this reconfiguring of the show, which is our take is that you don't have to be an expert on UFOs to appreciate this show. It won't hurt if you are. You might enjoy it anyway. But at the same time, I think one of the things that we want to do is be friendly to people that are saying, I've heard about this UFO UAP thing. I don't really know a lot about it. And then we want to take them along for this growing conversation. So listen, you already brought up your number 1. You won the coin toss. So take her away.
Hey, but I hope that, because one thing I did not include is the obviousness of government secrecy about this. So I'm hoping that that's in one of yours. And if not, we'll have to come back to that, because that's actually very, very fundamental. But yeah, so I guess the first thing that I would say is I think when we think about UAP or UFOs, because there's still a strong tendency for people to wonder, well, is this some kind of secret government project, black budget, and the like? And no one is here to say that there's no such thing as black budget tech engaged in the UFO subject. But I will suggest strongly that that we could expect in the future, there might be more and more claims that it's black budget tech specifically to move the conversation away from non-human intelligence. And I really do think that that's a likelihood. So I would just say there's a very strong conversation that the core of this mystery is from a group of beings that are not us, whether they're from another planet, another dimension, another time. We can argue about that at another point, but they're not from us. And there's a few reasons why I would say that. One, the technological performance of these objects through the historical records, and I'm talking 20th century here. We can go back into ancient times if we wish, but hypersonic speed, silent hovering, right angle turns, instant acceleration, all of these go back at least to the 1940s. And realistically, we can even say earlier, but let's just say the 1940s. But this is well before any aerospace programs that anyone knows about could have possibly achieved such feats. And if someone doubts that, one thing I would just say is that in the declassified literature through Freedom of Information, there actually are many, many references to military encounters where pilots noted these types of extraordinary behaviors in objects that they were trying to chase and failed to chase. So there's outstanding evidence to show that we've had exceptional technology that we've been dealing with for a long time. You have all kinds of radar visual, that means radar plus visual, and pilot encounters that involved multiple witnesses and instrumented data. This is not easily explainable as early Cold War tech. So these performance characteristics have been relatively unchanged over decades, even across cultures, across continents. So that is one reason to think we are dealing with something that is beyond our civilization. Also, though, I am not aware of any evidence of a pre-1950s breakthrough that is able to explain these technologies. I mean, we've gone through extensive historical and intelligence community documentation, and I don't think that there's any good indication of a classified human breakthrough, let's say prior to 1950, that could remotely approach UFO performance. There are claims that maybe during the 50s, there were some classified programs were working on anti-gravitics. People sometimes know about the Avro program, the Avro car. That's the public version of what might have been more classified. I would not rule it out. But this phenomenon broke into the scene in a major way in the 40s, and I just don't see anything that really could explain that in terms of our propulsion or aerodynamics. Nothing like that. And indeed, even like the advanced post-war efforts, whether it's Skunk Works or some of the atomic ideas of atomic aircraft and things like that, which were around in the 50s, mm-hmm. I don't think they ever achieved anything remotely what was seen in UFO encounters. And you get this confirmed by insiders repeatedly. And then I don't want to go on because we have other things to talk about, but the whole black tech hypothesis, I just want to say, I think is partial truth and possible cover. So you have some alleged crash retrieval programs, let's just say. They may exist within black budget circles. I think they probably do. But they seem to be reverse engineering efforts as opposed to original breakthroughs. That's one thing. The claims that these programs successfully have replicated UAP-level performance, that's a hard one to substantiate. There's all kinds of talk that we've gone this far, maybe that far, but have we gone all the way? Are we actually able to go across the galaxy, across solar systems? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, my sense of this, and this is more my feeling rather than a fact, is that the proliferation of like some of these human tech explanations, which we do hear, I think people should wonder, are these serving a deliberate disinformation function that undermines the truly anomalous nature of the phenomenon? Because when you go back through declassified documents, one thing is loud and clear. High-level intelligence officials were genuinely baffled by the performance of these objects. I was just reviewing yet again a 1952 memo to the director of the CIA by his director of scientific intelligence, who said the sightings of unknown objects at high altitudes and speeds in the vicinity of sensitive installations indicates they are not natural phenomena or known types of aerial vehicles. Very, very direct statement to the director of the CIA. And we get this a lot. So I think there is a genuine anomalous nature to this phenomenon that where you get the best consistent explanation, I'll wrap it up here, I would say is non-human intelligence or post-human intelligence or whatever. It's a continuity and global nature of the sightings across eras, across nations, coupled with scientific inexplicability. To me, that points to a non-human origin. And by the way, this has been a conclusion that many in the classified world have come to again and again and again. So it's really not an outrageous conclusion. And I only say it because sometimes it seems very obvious to people. It's like UFOs, aliens, duh. But sometimes it isn't so obvious. And I just think coming down to the fundamental that there is a phenomenon that is here on this planet involving what surely appears to be highly advanced non-human intelligence, and they're here.
Amen. Well, I'm just going to add a couple of things on top of that. The first would be, you just quoted a classified document that became unclassified, that the one to the CIA director. And it really illustrates that the behind the scenes during many of these last 75 plus years, there's been this freaking out, or at least this absolute acceptance of the fact that these were not ours, that they were looking at something very different. And so I think what's interesting is that became, let's just look at sort of the method of talking to the public about it over the years. And that would mean over 75 plus years, it was sort of official denial and ridicule. It was either it didn't happen, or the people who are saying it happened are hoaxers or liars, or they're crazy or whatever. But in 2021, that kind of pivoted a little bit with that preliminary report that was issued, where it basically said the U.S. was saying, well, they're not ours, and we don't think they're Chinese or Russian either, in which case I always say do the math. And if you do the math on that one, then they belong to somebody else. Now, that doesn't mean they're alien, but it does mean they're not exactly ours. They're not from our neighborhood, which I find to be a fascinating thing. And that's a good one as a basis for us just to say, okay, there's a marker. Some of these, not all of them, but some of these are not ours. And from that, you gotta ask some basic questions. Now, you basically, it's interesting. I said I was going to keep mine secret. Well, my secret first one was, this has been happening a long time, which you started to talk about. And I just want to make that point. People often think that this UFO story began either with Kenneth Arnold in 1947 saying, oh my gosh, he saw these 9 craft when he was flying up in Washington State, or they think it was Roswell in 47, where the local base admitted that they had taken possession of a craft. But the truth is, and you've written dramatically about this in most of your books, if not all of them, is that these things go back centuries. Some folks even find, mentions of these strange phenomena in the Bible and in ancient texts. But what really matters right now, let's put that aside. Although if you do some investigations, you can say, wow, this stuff really could go back thousands of years. All right. But at the very least, in our time frame, Rich, you got in the late 1890s, you have airships that actually airships didn't exist then. So people were seeing airships. What were they? But then you jump ahead to World War II. You've got in 1945 Foo Fighters, which is what our pilots were saying. And, these were orbs, basically. What we now call orbs, it sounds like, was what the Foo Fighters were. In 46, you had ghost rockets flying over Scandinavia. Yeah. And in 47, you had Kenneth Arnold, and et cetera. So the point is, this isn't something that started in 2004 with the Nimitz case. So this, as you pointed out, this technology has been going along a long time. And I don't want to get into retrying the Nimitz case, but it sure seems anomalous to me, and certainly seems anomalous to the radar operators and the pilots. And if we had that kind of technology in 2004, man, that the cover up and the crazy irritation of the public at learning we have that kind of technology and we're still building regular aircraft would be pretty insane. So yeah, this has been happening a very long time.
I'll just jump in and add, because I think you're right to say, like, this has been going on a long time. And there are times when I look at the early aspect of this phenomenon, and I have sometimes concluded that it can be overblown. I've said this. Not everyone likes when I say it, by the way, because we don't want to hang on to our favorite ancient aliens case. Right. Having said all of that, I absolutely do think there are some excellent early cases that I believe. My favorite book on the ancient UFO sightings is probably Wonders in the Sky by Jacques Vallée and Chris Aubeck. I've read that book many times. It's one of my favorite UFO books of all. And some of the cases I have in there are not at all persuasive to me, but others absolutely are. There's one from 1663 in Russia. It's always been one of my favorite, where you get this massive fiery sphere coming over a lake during a religious service. It goes back and forth like 3 times. It scorches boats. It lit up the lake bed to like a 30 feet deep. The main source on that is a formal monastery report. We have the name of the man who wrote it to his bishop. It's extreme. It's clearly a sincere report in 1663. Right. And the thing exhibits all the classic UFO features of maneuvering and reappearance and interacting with the environment. So like with some of these cases, you could try to explain them through folklore or some kind of natural phenomena. This one, I just can't. And there's a bunch of other really good early cases that are similar for me that make me think there's something going on there.
And let's face it, the fellow who wrote that 1663 report was not trying to get followers to his social media. He was, there's not an easy explanation for why he would make that up.
He was asking for spiritual advice. He was asking for spiritual advice. You sort of
have to believe the guy saw what he saw. It still leaves open the question of, well, what was it that he saw, given that he saw what it looked like, but who was operating it if that was the case. But, let's just conclude this one with the idea that why does it matter they've been around for a long time? That's kind of an interesting question. And I think my take is you realize that what is happening today is not random. It's not happening today for the first time. It's not fleeting. It's part of a bigger sustained pattern that's been around for at least decades, many decades, 7 or 8 decades, at least that long. But if you take the longer view and say, not every ancient aliens case is a good one. And believe me, I'm with you on that one, brother. But some are. Some are really good. And then this phenomenon may be going on across centuries. And that gives weight to why we need to get to the bottom of it today. It's today, as opposed to when that guy wrote his report in 1663, just saying, give me some advice here. I don't know what's going on. Now we have our own way of investigating these things. We have more technology. We have more history. So this is an ongoing phenomenon that appears to be interacting with humanity in one form or another. And it has been getting documented, frankly, since we could write things down. And even beyond that, when we didn't have a way to write things down, but we could etch cave pictures, we've been doing that have what look like UFOs in them. So let's just say our number 2 thing is it's been going on for a long time, which takes me to the stage is yours for number 3.
Yeah, and I just want to add one last thing to that.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's a very important point, like how long have they been here? It matters to us how long whoever they are, have been here, because that affects motivations. So if they're recent arrivals, that might mean one thing. If they've been here a very, very long time, that might mean something totally different. The last thing I would just add, and I'd love to come back to this in the future, but
we will.
When I look at the overall number of like decent reports, it does seem that there was an explosion that happened during and immediately after the Second World War, so that the phenomenon took on a new dimension. It's not that it did not exist previously. I look at it as kind of a low-key, long-term monitoring operation, whereas after World War II, it seems to me it's become more active. I would just leave it there because I think that's what I currently think.
You should leave it there because that's my number 4. So I'm going to let you.
Oh, okay. So the second one then.
Folks, this is very interesting. We're playing a live game of Can You Top This? I love it. All right. Go for it, sir.
Good deal. So my second one is basically we're talking about, and then this is often or almost always missed in our current discussion too, that there is a daily global presence of this phenomenon. It is around the world. And for anyone who doubts that, I would just say there are 2 very good sources. One of them is totally public domain. You can go check it out now. It is the National UFO Reporting Center. It's easily available on the web. And then the other is the MUFON database and Mutual UFO Network. Both of those organizations track thousands of UFO reports every year. And when I say thousands, I mean 5,000, 6,000, usually at least each of them, with some, but not a lot of overlap. So you're talking North America, realistically, probably 10,000 reports a year. Just North America, US and Canada is, I think, a very good estimate. Now, we do not have good reporting systems for most of the rest of the world. It's kind of spotty. Some regions get some reports, they can collect them, but it's not the same. So, but we do know that there's reports that happen around the world. We know this. My thing is like, US and Canada are less than 5% of the world's population. I mean, this is a big if reports are evenly distributed around the world, and we're getting 10,000 here, well, multiply by 20, and we're talking, what is 10,000 times 20? 2 million, but then, but then you have to say, all right, how many of those are genuine UFOs? No one really knows, right? But even if 5% are genuine, well, now you're back down to 10,000 decent sightings around the world every year. I mean, the thing is, we don't know what the numbers are because we do a terrible job in collecting the statistics. But what seems to be obvious is that there is a lot going on. And in the USO project that I'm in the process of finishing, that is absolutely global, not just over land, but over oceans. So this phenomenon, these beings, these craft are literally everywhere. They're over tall mountains. They're in the oceans. They're over deserts. They're over populated areas. And they are every day. And they are often hanging out over your neighborhood or over your neighbor's house at 2 a.m. in whether it's silent saucers or black triangles or whatever they are. What are they doing? The thing is, it's a global presence. And what this implies to me is a sustained program that has been, and then something that's also important to them. It's ongoing, it's active, it has not diminished. Despite all of the advances we're having in surveillance and detection and probably aerospace monitoring, it's like they're not really trying to avoid us. They're operating here, and they don't seem to give a crap about what we have to say about them. They have intent. These are not sporadic accidental incursions. This is a program, is what it looks like to me. So
you're doing something.
I'll leave it there.
Well, listen, so much to unpack in just those few words, but just a couple of quick reactions. First, there's a consistency to these sightings that you have different languages, different cultures, but people are describing the same kinds of things, or at least some of them. Now, there may be some different cultural ways of looking at it, but quite often the things that we're seeing are what they're seeing. So there's a consistency to these sightings. Very strange. And when you say there's thousands per year, or we jump out to those big numbers, remember, that's just the reported cases. Because one of the historical things about UFOs is most people don't like to talk about it because historically they have been told they're crazy or they're a liar or they're not a serious person. So they keep their sightings to themselves. And so we don't, not only do we not know what percentage of the things that are being viewed are actually anomalous, but we don't know what percentage of the ones that are actually anomalous are actually being reported.
How about this? The fact that most sightings are relatively fleeting. Some last for a long time. Some might be 5 minutes. Some might even be longer than that. But most, it's like, there it is. Oh, it's gone. Like, it's very fast. So I say that because it seems to me that there's probably a lot of activity. In fact, I'm sure of this. There's a tremendous amount of activity that we never see. And so how do you even calculate that which you cannot see? It's basically impossible. But I have to assume that there is a lot going on that we are just not noticing. One case that I was just looking at a few months ago took place over a tiny little island in the Atlantic Ocean off Africa. And a guy people were all pointing at this thing. This guy pulls out his cell phone. This is a MUFON case. And it would have been the easiest thing not to see it. But when you look at it on camera, it's quite fascinating. And it's just one of those things. These are easy to miss. And I just have to wonder, how much are we missing? So I think we're dealing with a very, very, very widespread phenomenon.
And when we talk about the global nature of it, Rich, these are not just people out walking their dog. Okay. We talked about earlier how these are pilots, whether they're military pilots or commercial. They're global. This isn't just American pilots. This is pilots from all over the world. These are good witnesses. These are law enforcement people in one country after another. And if you want to make the argument that this is some kind of American tech, I mean, you wouldn't expect to see all these sightings in other places. If it was American tech, we wouldn't be flying our stuff all over the world without a reason.
No, I mean, these things would cost money. It's not like there's an unlimited amount of money to fly thousands of sorties every day, or let's say thousands every month around the world over often populated. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that.
It's crazy. So, I think we can stipulate for number 3 that yes, this is a global phenomenon. It has been for a long time, and it shows no sign of changing in that regard. Now, the thing that to go to my next one, we started to almost talk about it, which is there's an ongoing nuclear connection to this thing, and you obviously that doesn't go back to ancient history, but it certainly does go back to World War II as a turning point. And if you think about what World War II represented, we were obviously doing the Manhattan Project out in the New Mexico desert. We blew up a couple of them, or at least one of them in the desert. Then we blew up a couple of them in Japan. And then the Cold War got started. And guess what happened at the same time that happened? We started seeing unidentified craft showing up around nuclear facilities. These included missile silos, submarines, aircraft carriers, even power plants. And this also was sustained over these decades. There were power plants being surveilled. There were places where radioactive material was being handled that were being looked at in the 50s. You've got cases, you probably heard about Rendlesham Forest. Those were nuclear weapons out there. Mm-hmm. Everyone's heard about Malmstrom these days. That was in 1967, I believe, where multiple nuclear missiles were taken offline, 10 of them, 10 missiles. And each one of those is a devastating piece of warfare hardware. And then in the Soviet Union, around that same time, they had the opposite. They had missiles suddenly arming themselves before being shut down. So I guess I just wanted to point out that you could look at it as surveillance, and on one level it is, but on another level, it's sort of, you mentioned intent. There is an intent here to demonstrate that these things are capable of interfering with weapon systems.
Yeah.
They can do this. They aren't trying to hide the fact they can do this. They've been doing it in plain sight, and they've been doing it for a long time. And I'll just leave you with this thought. It's an open question. I'm curious what your thoughts are about it. What's so strange to me is if I think about the fact that there are unidentified objects flying around our carrier groups, flying around our nuclear bases, why are we reacting as if this is not a problem? Why aren't we reacting more? I mean, let me put it this way. If an adversary, if Russia or China disabled even a single nuclear missile of ours, wouldn't that be front page news? Wouldn't that be escalating toward World War III? We'd be on full alert. And yet our response to some of this has been to ignore it or to downplay it. And I don't understand what the rationale is beyond that.
I suspect that because they have no answer to it.
Oh, there you go.
They don't really know how to. If you're the U.S. Navy, and one of these things comes up from the water or comes down from the sky and shuts off your aircraft carrier for a full half hour, this has happened. How? And your aircraft carriers, along with your nuclear submarines, are like your ultimate power projection to the world. And these things can shut them down. And not just American ships. We have Soviet cases as well where this happened. How do you tell the world? The one I'm thinking of happened in 1971. And Richard Nixon was president at that time. So imagine you're the president and you get this information. You can tell the public, you're going to say, yeah, this thing, this huge glowing orange object shut down all communications and weapon systems aboard the USS John F. Kennedy aircraft carrier. But we're okay, people. Like you've got nothing here that you can offer that's any kind of consolation. It's the worst thing. So, and then of course that opens up the whole can of worms. It's like, who are these people? Are there aliens? Like, this is the last thing I think the U.S. government wants to deal with. So to me, that answers it. The nuclear connection, I think you're right on. It's very important. And going right back to the beginning of the 40s, as you mentioned, you had sightings over Los Alamos National Laboratories, major nuclear technology development area. Oak Ridge Nuclear Facility in Tennessee, ditto. There were major sightings there in 1948, 49, 50, 51. And then the Hanford nuclear site in the state of Washington, where they manufactured plutonium, was the site for a long time in the 50s of just absolutely mind-blowing cases. And we know this because we got lucky with freedom of information, and some of those documents got declassified in the late 1970s when FOIA was actually kind of useful and it worked. And so we have these reports. So there's been longstanding interest. There was a case from a Southern African, I think Zimbabwe, uranium mine from 1952, where there's an object hanging out over there. And it goes on. So I think early on, there was a study by a member of CUFOS, the Center for UFO Studies, the J. Allen Hynek Center, Donald Johnson, PhD and statistician. And he did a very fine monograph on the correlation of UFO sightings with nuclear sites. And I think he showed very well statistically that this was not an aberration, that there was a definite correlation there.
The whole thing still is chilling because, look, when I tell friends or just interested parties about this nuclear connection, sometimes they'll say, and by the way, this isn't just people that have never heard about it, even people who have studied it. Sometimes they'll say, well, if they're here, they're probably concerned that we're going to destroy the planet, so they want to help us. And I think that's a fine theory, but it's only that. It's a theory, because another theory would be this surveillance is some kind of, what do you do when you prepare for battle? You find out what the other guy's got. You find out what his capabilities are. So
yeah,
at least in the public sphere. Now, it's possible there are reports and discussions that have happened outside of the public sphere and outside of a Freedom of Information Act declassification, where we actually understand a little bit more about whoever this other intelligence or intelligences are, what they're up to. But short of that, in the public sphere, you have to say we don't have the evidence. We have to keep all the theories on the table right now. It would be lovely if they were here to help us, and somehow they were testing if they could turn off our nukes so they could turn them all off and send us into a journey of peace and understanding. I guess that would be great. But it is true in a couple of the more than a few cases of experiencers and even children who have encountered craft, some kind of mental image has been implanted that the planet's in danger and they're here to help. So, but again, let's face it, disinformation is an act that our own government has used to win wars and to wage a war against the truth here at home for years. Doesn't mean that other intelligences wouldn't be able to do that as well. So I remain concerned. That's all. I just am concerned about this one because I feel that it should be heightened in its discussion. And so just to mention those congressional hearings, I would think since Congress, it's interesting to me, Rich, that when you come to congressional hearings today, they're not having congressional hearings to try to decide if we're alone or not so that we can all sing Kumbaya and feel very good. They're having congressional hearings because under the motivation of national security. Yeah, that's the primary motivator to have a hearing. So frankly, I hope those hearings do take on the nuclear issue. I would like to see that happen. We have good testimony these things have happened, but we haven't had any good testimony about why they've happened. Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't really know how easily we can be helped, by the way. That's another conversation.
Listen, like I said, this is a portal for us in the future. We'll be back on this one, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think we're probably unfixable. I mean, even from like a super powerful alien race that can do mind control and telepathy and all the things that we suspect, we have a planet of 8 billion human beings who are technologically competitive with each other, that have weapons peered over the fence at each other all the time. We're engaged in warfare all the time. We have competitive institutions, economic, social, and all kinds of institutions they have their own logic. Like I don't think we're really able to steer this ship or change direction very easily at all. And I think any intelligent beings looking at us can probably see that. So even if they wanted to say, oh, you have to be peaceful now, how would that actually ever happen?
So one of the shows that we're going to have in the future is probably something, we may give it a different title, but I would call it in my own head right now, What Do They Want? Because I spend a lot of time thinking about that. If you accept that this is all real in some respect or another, what do they want? And I want to know, are there people out there that know more about that than me? I'd like them to come forward and start talking. But you told us, you tipped your hat at the beginning as to what your next one was, and I wrote it down, and it says, the science remains inexplicable.
Yep. Yeah, it's an important thing to keep in mind that I think the physics are still quite foreign to us on many levels. So you talk about the objects. So they have flight characteristics that seem to defy Newtonian mechanics in any kind of known propulsion systems that at least I can think of. Like I mentioned before, instant acceleration, right angle turns at high speeds, hovering without lift surfaces, and also transmedium movement. Now, it is true, like we're hearing about the Chinese are developing more of a transmedium capability with one of their drones than we've had before, but it's still not true transmedium, like, being really excellent in water and then going to air. These objects can do that, to say nothing of going to space. So like those are the three mediums. So those behaviors right there, they break what we understand, at least as far as I can see, about things like G forces and inertia and even energy conservation. Our aircraft will black out pilots at a few Gs. These objects, they don't seem to have any such limits. Also, there's no really known source of propulsion or control or power. You have high quality military cases. You mentioned the Nimitz encounter. And there are others, Aguadilla from 2013, or that show craft with no wings, no rotors, no control surfaces, no visible propulsion, sometimes no heat signature when you have thermal or infrared imaging, no exhaust trails, despite these extreme velocities. So that's kind of bizarre. They don't seem to obey the aerodynamic rules that govern every single man-made machine that we know of. So, and the power source, if any, seems to be completely unknown. We have some speculation, but we don't really know. And then you think about something like interstellar travel. So let's just say they come from another planet, which I still put as my current best possibility. I'm not saying there's no potential interdimensionality to this, but the fact is, I don't really know anyone who truly understands interdimensionality to begin with. Interstellar travel, at least I can understand that. But that is not just hard for us. That is impossible for us right now. The distance to even the nearest star systems are immense. This is why there are skeptics out there, because the skeptics look at these distances. Proxima Centauri, the closest star, is over 4 light years away. It's like 25 trillion miles. With our best propulsion, that would probably take us tens of thousands of years. Maybe there's theoretical fusion drives that might cut that to a couple of centuries, but we don't have those either. So we don't have a roadmap for reaching another star system within a human lifetime. At least we don't now. There's speculative answers, warp drive or wormholes or some exotic matter or energy. We don't have those as far as I know, and whether we're able to control them as well. But UFOs or UAP, if they're coming here from another world, they've figured something out that we are not there yet. They arrive, they leave, and while they're here, they can just do this stuff instantly. So they have solved a problem we have not even really been able to approach yet. And I'm not aware of a genuine theoretical framework that can account for what they can do, at least not yet. There's zero-point energy possibilities, there's space-time manipulation, there's field propulsion, non-locality. But as far as I can see, those are mostly mathematical models. I don't know what kind of experimental confirmation that exists. There are rumors of alien reproduction vehicles, the ARV from the 1980s. Maybe that can do something like that. I wouldn't ever say no. But the bottom line is, we in our world, we do not understand those physics. And all the declassified memos basically give the same idea. It's like they know that these things are here, but they don't understand how these things operated. So it's important because I would remind skeptics that this is a genuine mystery, even for those of us who believe in the reality of UFOs. But the reason I come down on the side that they exist is simply because the number of good reports is overwhelming, as I said earlier. And I just don't know of an intellectually honest way to dismiss those reports. So the reports are there. They seem to describe something that is extraordinary, that is here, and we don't understand the science.
We just don't. Listen, I remember the first time we met, and we were just kicking things around. And I remember something you said. You go, well, I don't know what's going on, but they're not flying around on gasoline. Right?
Yeah, right.
And
right.
Because it's so true. I mean, obviously, there is a form of technology we are unaware of that somebody else has figured out, because the things that they're doing, this acceleration without visible propulsion and right angle turns and hypersonic speeds, we're approaching hypersonic speeds, obviously. But some of this stuff just is crazy talk. And to do some of the things they discuss would be having an energy system we simply don't understand. Now, I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to be a scientist. In fact, I nearly flunked out of high school in chemistry, and I had to drop my math class, or else I wouldn't have graduated even from high school. So, but as a journalist, I can at least talk to people about science and understand what the scientists are talking about. And I agree with another thing you've said over the years about how we are not in danger, we are preparing to leap into their world, whoever they are and whatever their world is, we're working on it. We're getting there. So I feel like I have to agree with you, Rich, when you say extraterrestrial is still your best guess. It's still my best guess. But partly because I understand the distances involved, although clearly it's possible that this technology is something that manipulates space-time that I really, really don't understand, and even our best physicists don't yet understand. But taking aside the distances involved, it still feels to me like this is such a vast, infinitely vast universe out there. I mean, our little part here in the Milky Way is nothing. I mean, compared to what's out there, it's the universe is just. When I was a younger reporter, I got a chance to hang out with Carl Sagan for an afternoon into the evening when I hosted a show he was on, and he was famous for the billions and billions of stars out there and planets and so forth. But even he would be amazed at the number of planets we're coming up with in our own little area. So I think that's still the best guess. The question is, how are they doing it? And I think what we are being told, Rich, even though we can't comprehend it yet, is that the universe, as we think we know it, is actually operating on a different set of rules than we currently understand. And I look forward to someone explaining them to me someday, and I'll try to keep up when that happens.
There are some just fascinating discussions going on relating to cosmology and the size of the universe and the nature of the universe. And I'm like a kid as well. I'm not studied at all in the specifics, but it is true. Like there are some genuine mysteries about the nature of reality as we understand it. I suspect that we, as an informationally based species, I mean, that's really what our strength is. We know how to manage and manipulate information for domination of this world. That's kind of what we do. And we've got these great opposable thumbs that allow us to do that. So we've learned that the universe is itself, maybe you could say, on an informational substrate. Maybe that's the foundation of reality, is information. And we are learning how to unlock information. And it could be that we are getting to a point where we might, with assistance of the computers and algorithms that we've created, we might actually be able to make some significant advances in our understanding of that reality. And if we do that, maybe it's not impossible that they would then think, now we can have a conversation with these people. Because think about, like, if you go back 500 years, you talk to Nicholas Copernicus, the great astronomer genius who posited that the sun is at the center of our solar system. Well, all right, so he was a brilliant man, but how much could you tell him about the true nature of reality today? Like, it would be very difficult. We wouldn't really be able to have a full, deep conversation about reality as we understand it with people of the past, because they just didn't have the foundation.
Correct.
And we probably don't have that with these other beings. So from their point of view, they might just be thinking, how the hell could we even talk to these human beings? They're not even remotely on our understanding of reality. There's no point. But it's possible that if we were to get to that point, we would then learn, we would know, oh, that's how they're getting here. Like it would all come together. We don't really have that understanding just now.
It's such a great mystery that we're involved in, which is, I think, what draws me to it. I just, I'm not the young man I used to be, but I still want to know something about this before I shuffle away. I feel like it's time to hear more about it, which is why my last one and our last one for today, and frankly, it's very encouraging to me because it means that our red line of getting out under an hour we'll be able to keep up with. But what I wrote down for my last thing we need to know now goes back to sort of how you and I first met when we were writing our book After Disclosure. And that is, disclosure is up to us now. Historically, folks, what's been happening with the idea of disclosure is there was some sense that the people who had the information, AKA the government in most cases, and then over time, possibly aerospace companies, et cetera. But those people would someday decide through whatever reasoning that they had that it was time to bring the rest of us in on this big mystery. That still could happen. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I don't think we anymore have to put all our eggs in that basket because the basket got bigger. We now have the ability to think of disclosure as a bottom-up process rather than a top-down. All the toys and all the bells and whistles that the government used to have only to themselves have, in many respects, devolved into our population. We have scientists who are now able to take a look at this thing in ways that they couldn't before. We have technology to see the world in a different way than we were capable of seeing it before. And we also have a changed environment. It used to be that nobody wanted to come forward ever because they'd be made fun of, and people didn't want to lose their careers. And pilots knew that if they talked about what they saw, they'd be grounded. And military guys felt that they would lose their pension or whatever if somebody threatened them. Increasingly, though, people are starting to tell their stories. There's people able to come to Congress and talk about that. And then again, like I say, there's independent organizations that are running their own sensor arrays. They're deploying scientific equipment, and they're collecting data basically without needing official sanction. So, Rich, my number 6 is just that, and I think it's hopeful. I like to end on hope whenever possible. It's hopeful that we can get to at least the beginning of unveiling the reality behind this mystery. And we can do it by ourselves. If those who have taken power don't want to tell us, we'll tell ourselves.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm quite on that same page. I mean, I do. All right. Oh, sorry. A couple of things. So yeah, there's more, let's call it legal scaffolding that is now in place.
True.
We've had, Burleson just offered the latest 2025 UAP Disclosure Act for the NDAA. So we'll see how that goes. That's not a cure-all. That can be easily subverted in many ways. But let's just say, okay, there's more insiders that seem to be ready to talk. Check. And there do seem to be a couple of cracks in the system that exist, and maybe the public is more ready than it used to be. So all of that, I think I would agree with you. And as a bottom-up process, I agree with that as well. I see a lot of problems with this. So I see problems with all the institutional inertia, the deep secrecy structures, the whole legacy of compartmentalization. All of this data seems to have been sequestered into special access programs that are often outside standard Department of Defense or even executive oversight. You have a continuity of the deep state or the national security state that seem to be immune to congressional pressure or even freedom of information, privatization of a lot of this. I know the UAPDA does have the eminent domain clause in there that might deal with privatized sequestering, from Lockheed Martin or places like that. Maybe that'll happen. But there's definitely, you see, the thing is the insiders who are promoting some level of disclosure are still intent on avoiding what they call catastrophic disclosure. And I understand this, but because what they don't want is for the system to break down completely. I mean, you think about how a genuine disclosure could screw with the financial markets. I'm not a financier or an economist, but it's not impossible for me to realize that with a genuine, full, transparent disclosure, let's say of the energy paradigm, if nothing else, Well, there's billions, maybe trillions of dollars of infrastructure invested in petroleum and all the other structures that rely on the way that we've done things in the past. Do those just become worthless now? Do you have $1 trillion investments that just lose all of their value overnight? I can guarantee that there will be powerful people, not you and me, because we don't own those infrastructures, probably not most of our listeners, but I am sure that there are powerful people whose attitude is, no way are we going to let those investments go bad. So disclosure, I think, is always going to be a fight. And there's always going to be this attempt by well-meaning insiders who do believe in some transparency, to manage this process so that the system doesn't just go kaboom. And maybe they've got a point. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're not right. But I think that we're going to, bottom up or top down. That really is the question. When we wrote our book, we were like 100% bottom up. We were like, there's going to be a leak, something that's out of control, and it's going to crash the system, and the system's going to scramble to regroup. That can still happen. That is not impossible. And the real question is that the insiders, I have to think they're going to do everything possible to try to avoid that. They're going to want to manage this like being at the rodeo and they're riding a bucking bronco that's ready to throw them from the horse. I think that's maybe how they're feeling.
Well, I think you and I are just illustrating what I hope will be the strength of this new need to know, which is we don't have to agree with each other on everything. We can have a conversation about it. We can kick it around. But honestly, I feel like we're writing our book again because we're having these conversations, and it's such a hard thing to get your arms around. But the one thought that may allow us to bring some closure here is, okay, it may not be up to us. It may not be A, B, but it may be C. It may not be the government. It may not be us, but it might be them. All right. So let's just see how the world has changed and ask ourselves, if the thing that happened before happened now, what would that mean? So you think about what happened in Washington, D.C. in 1952, where for 2 weekends straight, there were overflights of anomalous vehicles, and everybody was kind of freaking out. It was on the front page of the newspapers. It knocked the Democratic convention off the front page because it was such a big deal. Well, imagine today what that would sort of read like in the headlines and in the world. But here's another couple of Hudson Valley in the 1980s. You've written extensively about that. People are out in lawn chairs watching stuff. Okay. Well, today they're out in lawn chairs watching stuff, and they're on social media, and they're taking photos, and people with far better cameras are out there. And if that's really happening, we're going to get better stuff. And then and there's so many, we talked about how many there are. So I'm going to stop with a third one, which is Phoenix in 1997. Some kind of giant mothership looking thing is going over the entire city, and hundreds, if not thousands of people are seeing it. Okay. Yeah. It's hard to believe that could be swept away. But again, we didn't all have cell phones. We didn't have social media. And we had a really heavy resistance. A lot of people knew nothing about the UFO topic other than it was fanciful and probably not real. But today, we know it's real. The government itself has told us it's real. They just are denying who's behind it. So we may find ourselves in a situation one of these days where it's not up to us. It's up to somebody else. And possibly that'll be a show and a half, Rich, by the way. If something like that happens again, we're going to have something to talk about.
There's a lot. I wonder, is it maybe we should ask viewers if they have a really good theme that they want us to hit. Maybe they drop it below in a comment. We'll take a look at that.
That's a great way to end this. Folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's all these comments. Please leave a comment with your own thoughts. And frankly, that's true even on the podcast version. You can leave comments at most of those spots. And we do read them. We do read them, and we'll continue to read them. So that takes us to the end, my friend. We've done it again. And it's kind of fun. I'm enjoying it. Thank you for your participation.
I'm enjoying it a lot. It's great having conversations with you again, Bryce. I'm glad to be kind of working with you on this. And in this format, this is just great. So my main hope is that the people who watch it find it worthwhile. So
I know you all. You have a catchphrase. I'm going to let you say it if you want. Don't you have a catchphrase?
Keep fighting the good fight.
Right, and I'll end with "Watch the skies," and we'll call it a day. All right, thanks. I'll see you next month, man. Thank you.
Later. Bye, everyone.
Need to Know is produced by Bryce Zabel and Tyler Stevens and is brought to you by Stellar Productions. You can learn more at needtoknow.today. We appreciate you and hope you'll spread the word. See you next time, because these days you really do need to know.